Hello, everybody. My name is Gregg Greenberg. For those who don't know who I am a board member and contributing daily contributor to Aortic Hope. Um, I'm here to tell you my story with aortic disease. Mine starts first. Let me start off by saying this disclaimer for the aneurysm people that might be watching. Um, my story is atypical of what happens to dissection patients. Everyone's story is unique. Not everybody's is going to sound as bad as mine, so I don't want it to freak anybody out. Um, but I'm going to tell my story. It's long, but it's an important story to tell. Anyway, it goes back to September of 2013. When I was 38 years old. It was a Friday night, and I wasn't feeling great. And I was supposed to go out with my girlfriend. Turns out she wasn't feeling great either. So I figured maybe we just both had a little bug, and we were going to stay home and relax. We went to go to bed. I was not feeling wonderful, couldn't fall asleep. So I decided that I was going to take a shower. This was a common thing for me to do when I felt warm and couldn't fall asleep. So I used to cool down, normally right out to sleep. Unfortunately, what happened was I got into the shower, and within a minute and a half of being in the shower, I lost all feeling in my left leg. Couldn't put any weight on it. Now, when I say lost feeling, I mean no feeling to the touch, couldn't move it. It was dead. It was frozen. It, however, was very painful. At that point, the most painful thing I'd ever felt in my life. It felt like somebody was microwaving my leg. That it was like cooking from the inside out. It was on fire, literally on the inside, and then dead and cold to the touch on the outside. However, about 30 seconds or a minute after that happened, that pain would be replaced with the new most painful thing I would ever experience, which was a stabbing feeling at the back of the base of my neck and between my shoulder blades. And it basically felt like somebody filleted me down to my waist. I literally felt a rip and cut all the way down. And that was excruciating. So now I'm battling both this pain. I got out of the shower and hopped back into my bedroom, and I woke my girlfriend up, and I was like, we have a real problem. You need to go downstairs, wake up your father, and have him call the fire department and get an ambulance to the house. She was like, really? And I was like, yes, we need to do this. I'm like, I'm in real trouble. Can't feel my leg. I'm in trouble. So they call an ambulance. As it turns out, the fire department wouldn't be who took me. The county had an ambulance around the block, and they got there with a couple of police officers. I wouldn't remember any of that. I don't remember them ever getting to the house. I was conscious the whole time, but her father came upstairs, told me that everybody was on their way, and I have about a minute recollection of anything. I just remember telling them how much pain I was, and then internally, I had about a minute and a half, maybe at most, of a horrible range of feelings because I knew I was dying. I knew that I was in trouble. I knew that this was going to be the last time I was going to see anyone, talk to anyone, or anything. I knew that I was not going to talk to my girlfriend again. I knew that I was going to leave my mother in a fashion similar to the way that my dad did, although his was a brain aneurysm. And I knew that I was never going to talk to, or thought I was never going to talk to my girlfriend's 10-year-old, soon-to-be 10-year-old daughter again. Like I said, my brain protects me from all of it. I don't remember any. Anything from this point on is anecdotal, but I can give you a little bit of the background of it. It starts off, they get there. Luckily, the paramedic thinks that it's an aortic dissection. He's pretty sure with the way that everything extremely was symptomatic and how I was presenting that that it was something along the lines of an aortic dissection or a stroke. So they were prepared when I went to the hospital. They take me to a hospital on Long Island called NUMC. Now, NUMC is a great trauma hospital. Unfortunately, not really cardiac hospital, but they realized the urgency. And it's only 5 minutes from where I was living. They got me there. And by the time that my girlfriend and her father got into the hospital, I was already being rolled into CT with every doctor and nurse possibly on the floor that day, supposedly. They knew I was in trouble. And sure enough, they confirmed that I had a catastrophic and very bad type A and B dissection. But I had pretty much torn the length of the aorta and to the point through the iliacs that there was blood flow to the femorals was affected and that there might be problems with my legs. The pain in my leg that had started the way that it was from something called compartment syndrome. Basically, the leg chokes itself. There's so much swelling in the muscular compartments that blood can't get to where it needs to get to. So that was going to have to be resolved too. But those at NUMC called North Shore Manhasset on Long Island. And the plans were already made to stabilize me and transfer me over to them. And basically a team would be ready to see me the second I got there, and I would be going into surgery. So they get me over to Manhasset. My doctor, Dr. Paige N.U. or Jenny Yu at Manhasset, great female doctor who was relatively new there at the time. But she informs my family that I forgot the vascular surgeon's name, and orthopedist would all be in the surgery because the orthopedist was going to handle my compartment syndrome in my leg and do my fasciotomy. The vascular surgeon was going to be working on doing a fem-fem bypass to make sure that blood was restored to both legs. And she would be handling the graft that they would be putting into my chest and no open heart surgery. So that goes on. Like for so many of us that have been through dissections, 9 hours later, heart-lung bypass, the whole 10 yards. Everybody worked. Everybody working on their different areas. And then I'm out of surgery 8 to 9 hours later. Surgery went really well. They'd only given my family a 5% to 10% chance that I would survive the surgery initially. But then again, she said at the same time, she was frankly surprised that I was still alive in front of her at that point. So she was very hopeful. It was a very hopeful 5 or 10%, but she was being realistic. So I get out of surgery. Everything went off without a hitch, but I was still in real trouble. They couldn't control my blood pressure at the time. So they were going to keep me medically sedated, basically medically induced coma for as long as it took to get everything under control and to let me heal. They were going to pull me out. They told my family they were going to pull me out occasionally to test me neurologically because of the way that I presented and the fact that I was kind of not truly there, everything like that. But so that pretty much goes on. Fast forward to that Monday. So about 48 hours after I'm out of surgery, my girlfriend finally decides to go home, and my mother calls her and explains to her that there's a real problem. My organs are failing and that she needs to come back because she needs to potentially say goodbye. So they are going to take me back into surgery. My kidneys are failing, my liver is failing, and they're truly concerned that my intestines have gone ischemic. And in that case, if they've gone very ischemic, then we have a real problem, and they're just going to make me comfortable, and they'll let me pass in peace. But if it's something manageable, they'll just remove some of the intestine and keep their fingers crossed. Turns out, don't need to keep their fingers crossed that much. Intestines were clean. They did have to do a fenestration of one of the arteries so that they can restore blood flow to my liver. And they did and then they started a dialysis treatment to kickstart my kidneys. That started off as 24-hour dialysis. That went down to 12 hours, and then I was getting shorter until my kidneys had responded over the course of the next week. All the while, they're pulling me out neurologically, test me neurologically. They're pulling me out of sedation. I'm doing relatively well. There's some obvious strength differences with the legs and with some of the arms, but I'm doing well. I'm responding well. I'm being responsive to all their directions and everything like that. So that basically takes us through the first week or so, and then I'm out of sedation. I'm very agitated all the time. They have to occasionally sedate me for a little bit. I was experiencing ICU psychosis, which is very common. I could not tell between reality and the dreams that I was having at the time. And I was dreaming probably for 18 hours a day, sleeping probably 18 to 20 hours at that point. So the dream seemed as much reality as the actual reality did at that point. So it was combative. I was agitated. I wasn't probably the most pleasant person to be around, nor the most pleasant patient for the nursing staff or the doctors, but it unfortunately happens. And they see this all the time. So the next major step is it's going to be a rehab. I left out this wonderful part. This is my fault. This is very important. In the course of my kidneys failing, they believe emboli went to my feet. And despite the fact that they saved my legs, gangrene had set in my feet. And that was going to be a real problem. And probably I was going to be staring at some level of amputation at some point. So that leads into the between my strength level and between what was going to need to be done with the feet. They knew that I was going to have to go to rehab. They knew other surgeries were potentially coming, including that. They were going to have to do skin grafts and close my leg up. But at that point, that wasn't a concern, because just getting me back and healthy enough to have those surgeries was the concern. So now the next thing gets me, they're going to have to transfer me to a inpatient rehab. So the next 2 weeks are really all about getting me up, getting me walking, and getting me strong enough so I can get approved to go to this rehab center. I get transferred to the rehab center on October 15th, 2013. So for those keeping track, it's 24 days, the first hospital before I get transferred. And I get transferred to a sister hospital in their system, Southside Hospital in Bayshore, Long Island, New York. And so I get transferred there. That's Tuesday. I get transferred October 15th. My girlfriend and my mom decided they're going to take the next day off because they're instructed that there's going to be a lot of assessment to see what kind of level of rehab I need, both potentially physical and occupational. So I'm going to be busy all day is what they're told. However, they are calling my room and calling my phone on October 16th, the morning that Wednesday, and no one's answering. So now everyone's starting to panic. They're calling the nurses. The nurses are, he's there, but he says he's not feeling well. So my mom and my girlfriend come to the hospital in time to see them trying to get me up so that I can go to the assessment, and I collapse back onto the bed. I wake up to feels like 30 people in the room, everybody looking at me, but it might not have been, I don't remember. But they know that it's time to get me back down to a CT tube and see what's going on. So they bring me back down to CT. Everything looks stable. So then they decide that they're going to do a GI series. Part of what I left out during initial surgery, when they opened up my chest, they found that my stomach, I had a hiatal hernia, and my stomach was predominantly in my chest cavity. It was such a bad hiatal hernia, it pushed past the diaphragm and was actually sitting up here. Yeah, so they decided they were going to do a GI series. I proceeded to throw up all over their wonderful imaging tube, and but they were able to get enough reading, enough of a look, and they realized that my stomach had twisted in the chest. So this was going to need relatively immediate surgery. Wasn't going to be taken care of that day. I think it was scheduled for the next morning. But so I was transferred back up to the cardiac floor because ultimately I was still a cardiac patient and was scheduled for the surgery the next day. They did the surgery. They took about half my stomach at the time, and I was expected to heal okay. Fortunately, that put me back in ICU, and another bout of ICU psychosis set in. This one was bad. The other one was bad, but this one was probably bad because it put everyone right back where it was initially. Putting me being really combative this time. This time I can remember some of it. I was very combative with everybody. My family, nursing staff, doctors, everybody. But so that was about it. So back goes on, I heal up from that. Therapists are coming down. I'm walking the halls. I'm progressing real well. And it's time to get out of ICU. And I'm going to move up to back up to the cardiac floor until I passed the test to get moved back down to rehab again. In the course of that, now we're getting to the beginning of November, November 3rd or 4th. My surgery scheduled for, they're going to do a skin graft to close one side of my fasciotomy, and they're going to stitch the other side. So I'm going to have that surgery. So I go down. Everything goes well with that. It's fantastic. Except the swabs come back from my surgery that I tested positive for MRSA. Not uncommon. They deal with it very commonly in the hospital. It's not the biggest deal in the world. However, with somebody that has open wounds and from this surgery and that surgery, the one real concern for them with MRSA was, how are these wounds going to heal? Are things going to close correctly? Or is my skin graft going to hold? Is it going to take, or are they going to have to do it again? They're prepared that they're going to have to do it again. So get to that. I start trying to work towards getting to rehab, and everything starts off okay. But then all of a sudden I can't even put weight down on my foot. My left foot, it's extreme pain. Make a long story short, after being told for like a week that I really need to stop, feeling sorry for myself and quitting on the potential of my rehab, someone finally takes a look at my Achilles. And there's a wound there. And they call the orthopedist. The orthopedist comes in, and she was like, oh my God, I can actually see his Achilles tendon. Evidently, the skin had broken down so much that pretty much everything covering my Achilles in the back of my leg had just basically disintegrated skin-wise. So that's a real problem. They're concerned that my Achilles ruptured. It turned out it didn't. But the biggest problem was I can't progress. I can't get any better. Unfortunately now, to my chagrin, a lot of people are talking nursing home because I can't be sitting in the hospital. Cardiac floor is like, he's been stable for a while now. This needs to progress, or we need to transfer him somewhere. And if he can't walk, then it's going to have to be a nursing home if he can't be in an active rehab environment. So ends up, my family's not happy about it. The original vascular surgeon gets involved for my first hospital. He had privileges at the sister hospital. He comes and he gets the podiatrist and surgeon to come in as well. And they're trying to decide whether or not they can just amputate my feet, or the majority of my feet, or whether or not it's going to have to go up to legs. The podiatrist, the surgeon, he believes at this point that barring any complications with the MRSA, he can solve this with an amputation of just my feet. So that gets set up for maybe 4 or 5 days later. And that takes us to pretty much I think it was the Friday after Thanksgiving that year. So the 28th maybe, or 29th of November. And, oh, no, my bad. It's operated on before that week, the Monday of that week, not Thanksgiving, not after Thanksgiving, it was before Thanksgiving. So it was Monday the 24th of November 24th of that year. And so they amputate the majority of both my feet. Enough people have probably seen pictures of it floating around the community. So they amputate them. And then, they know that I'm going to be laid up for a little bit longer till those amputations are comfortable enough for me to walk on. And then I can start my rehab again. So they amputate my feet, and it's horrible. That ranks right up there, just slightly below the dissection as the most painful thing. So for those keeping score, that's 3 of the top 3 most painful things I ever felt in my life, all in the span of 2 months. And it's from somebody who has passed kidney stones, which pale in comparison. But so they do the amputations, and they probably rest up for about a week, where very minimally on them, and then I start cranking again. I get they bring in somebody to make orthotic shoes for me. They were wedged. They looked like wedged. Looked like a wedge high heel in a woman. But it was supposed to train me how to walk on my heels, because that was what I was going to have. I wasn't going to have a forefoot. I wasn't going to have much of an instep anymore. It was going to be heel and a little bit of foot on each side, and I was going to have to learn how to walk on my heels. So those shoes did it. I got up and basically got approved to be moved down to the rehab program. The rehab program, I get moved down there on December 15th of 2013, with the anticipation that I'm going to be there probably 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how I progress. They were hoping closer to 4, which they thought could happen, and I was very encouraged. But as it turns out, I kicked ass. Um, Kicked ass, and I was only in rehab for 2 weeks. Um, got through occupational glowingly. Uh, got through physical glowingly. And when I say that, I don't want to overstate it. I was being released still with a wheelchair. I was being spending time in the wheelchair and with a walker, doing the majority of my walking with a walker. So I don't want to make it sound like, boom, I was up on my feet. I was going to be doing outpatient rehab, but I was getting home. That's the important thing. And fortunately, they didn't want to rush it and push it out for time for Christmas with the family. But I was released on December 28th of that year, 2013. So for those keeping track, it was a 98-day hospital stay. That's rough. That's rough. It takes a toll on everyone. Frankly, this experience takes a toll on anyone, no matter if it's a 10-day hospital stay or it's a 98-day hospital stay. I just had a unique perspective of getting my phone back and being stuck in my thoughts in a hospital bed for 40 or 50 days, searching the internet and seeing everything that's out there. That's very scary about dissection, which everybody here knows. But I was released home, and things were progressing well. And the only issue was I was being released. I knew that my descending tear was not good. It was not complicated enough for surgery, but potentially was going to need surgery at some point. But it was going to stay medically managed for that point. And I knew of what originally was referred to as a dilation at the thoracic abdominal cutoff line, pretty much equal with basically my diaphragm in the aorta. And it was originally labeled as a dilation at 3.4, but by the time I left the hospital in December, it was 3.8 centimeters, and they were already calling it an aneurysm. So I knew that there was a long hole, and I was set up for scans every 3 months and everything like that. So released from the hospital, like I said, in December. Go back and see the surgeon in January, and she informs me that I had my first scan in March of 2014. So fast forward to that first scan. Oh, before we go anywhere else, we knew it was going to be a long haul. I put in for started disability, everything disability-wise. I didn't go through use a lawyer though, but everything disability-wise was put in while I was in the hospital in December. No doctor was confident that I was returning to work anytime soon, let alone the first year. So I was told right away to apply for disability. So I go for that first scan, and in the first 3 months home and back into my life, you notice there's a little more tearing and descending, a little more residual tearing, and my aneurysm had gone from 3.9 to 4.2. So in 3 months. So that was pretty rapid growth for a 3-month period. So we're going to change my meds up, and we're going to work on it. And that's basically it. That point I was staring at, my doctors had told me the other aneurysm was going to have to be addressed. The descending was probably going to have to be surgically addressed at some point. But we were going to cross that bridge when we come to it. And like I said, it's 4.5 years ago. I will say, which is very good, we are now approaching 5 years, and I have not had surgery on either. That other aneurysm is hovering right at the 5 centimeter mark. But the descending is holding and has been asymptomatic. And really, their concern is how it feeds the the legs again. That's their concern. If I manifest with anything like like I did initially. So that's the story of the actual dissection. I will tell you that, like anybody else, we know how hard it is. I learned very good coping techniques, like everybody else, where everybody tries to. I will give you my advice. The first 6 months, I was a mess every day, emotionally. I was having bad PTSD triggers. I was having all sorts of things. The shower was not a very good place for me to go. Still to this day, I have struggles in the shower. I don't panic the way I used to, but I still am never comfortable in there. But I'll give you a little bit of my advice on what works, especially on the bad emotional days. I hate the term new normal. There's nothing normal about what any of us are going through or experiencing. That's the unfortunate thing a lot of people don't realize, is that unlike a simple heart attack, where maybe you survive and you change your eating habits and everything like that, this has a very chronic illness aspect of it. It is chronic for us. It will forever be an issue. It'll change our life. For a lot of people, unfortunately, it might cost them their life eventually. But hopefully it will not. Hopefully we'll all live to whatever else gets us eventually. Yeah, so I hate the term new normal. I use the term Gregg 2.0. What the idea of Gregg 2.0 does for me is it helps me mourn the Gregg that I lost that day. Because frankly, that Gregg died. He's never coming back. I will never be the same. So I'm very comfortable, or I should say, I'm as comfortable as I can be with that thought. And then it helps me celebrate the Gregg that remains. He's very much like the Gregg that initially existed. He just, he's different. He suffers from pump head or post-perfusion syndrome, like most of us do, and has some memory issues and some focus issues. And he's definitely never going to run again with his amputations, but he's walking. And he walks well, considering, except for a slight limp or changing gait, you wouldn't know that he was an amputee. So that's positive. Yeah, so, there's a lot of things he's never going to do again. But I celebrate him. I celebrate him every day. And how I do it is I give myself 10 minutes if I'm feeling bad that day to mourn the Gregg I lost, and then it's time to push on, time to get better, time to feel better, and that's it. So I give myself, and then I celebrate myself. And it's time to, enjoy the life that I'm living now as best I can. I owe that to myself. And what's the point of fighting as hard as we did to survive if we're not gonna, as we like to use Aortic Hope, if we're not going to strive to thrive. And that's the key. And that's the key to everything, is how do we move forward? How do we move forward from there? How do we do it? How do we live our lives? When so much has been taken, but we have to remember how much is still left. We still have our families, in a lot of cases. The people that love us, the people that have been there. So that's basically been it. I'm still checked. Now it's every 6 months on a ton of medication. On 2,400 milligrams of labetalol a day, which is a max dosage. I'm on the clonidine patch, the 0.3. That's a max dosage. I'm on max dosage of amlodipine. And then I take hydrolysine. So 4 BP meds. I think at the most, at one point I was on 30 some odd pills a day. Now I'm like at 22. So that's positive. Yep, and that takes us up to now. For me, that was truly joining the Aortic Hope staff. What has been the biggest positive in the last year is joining the Aortic Hope staff and working with Karen, Tia, Bill, and Jamie. Me, Karen, Tia work daily on the stuff that you see on the site. Jamie and Bill are fantastic behind the scenes. And talking to everybody in the community and being able to talk and reach out to everyone in the community. That is truly, at this point, what I enjoy, what makes me feel of service, what makes me feel worthy of the second chance, and something that I need to do with the second chance, frankly. It's rough. It's a rough thing for all of us. That's the key. The key is not to give up, to keep on fighting, to find joy and happiness in this 2.0 version of yourself, and find purpose. Find purpose. A lot of us are never going to work again, are going to be on disability, but find what makes you happy. That's the key. That's going to be the key to everything. It's going to be the key to controlling your blood pressure and continuing to survive and thrive. That's the key to everything. So that's pretty much my story. I mean, there's a lot that I left out. There's not enough time in the world really to cover that 98 days. But this about sums it up. And I just want to tell everyone out there in our community, I love you, we love you. Aortic Hope loves you and thanks you for your support. And I love everybody for the support in the community. And I just want to say thanks again. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to my story. Thanks.